3D drawings, renderings.
There you go.
Good evening. It is Monday, November 21st, 2011, and I will call this meeting of the Norfolk City Council to order. I will inform you this is an open meeting. Located in the northwest corner of this room is the actual Open Meeting Act, made accessible to all members of the public. And I would ask that you stand with us and join in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll continue with roll call.
Coy.
Here.
Lange.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Brenneman.
Here.
House.
Here.
Saunders.
All right, and under action tonight, first I would ask for approval of the consent agenda.
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
A motion with a second for approval of the consent agenda. If you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
As well, again, approval of the full agenda as presented you.
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
We have a motion with a second for approval of the full agenda. If you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Okay. And we'll jump right to special presentation tonight. We're looking for a recreation update.
Yes, Your Honor, Council. Thank you. Well, we're again making progress down there, but the multi-use building, if you drive by there, it's really starting to take shape. Daily, they're laying in those pre-casted concrete walls on the multi-use building. They really look nice, and they're really going to set off that architectural look there that the community was looking for. So that's coming together nicely. The east wing of the building is ready for the plumbing and electrical guys to get in there and get started. I'm not sure if they got started in there today, but they were waiting for some sand to be delivered, and so they ought to be starting there very soon if they haven't already started. So that was a great thing to see come together as well. We're nearing completion of the floor sections of the pool. Hopefully, if the weather holds by next week, with this short week being Thanksgiving week, next week we'll have that done, and then start on some walls going up in the vessels there as well. So really, with all things being said, the weather has been full. The contractors keep moving forward, so I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Dennis and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the project down there. Also, if there isn't any questions, I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity. I'd love to take the mayor and council down there, and anyone that's interested in seeing it tomorrow or Wednesday morning about 10 o'clock. I'd offer that out. We'll be down at the site there, and if you crawl up on the bleachers and you just kind of walk the campus down there, and at this point in its build-up, you can really see how it's starting to come together with the National Guard and the parking lots and the aquatics facility and the multi-use building and the baseball stadium. It gives you a good perspective if you get up on the bleachers near the press boxes and try to take a bird's eye view of it. So I offer that up to the mayor and council if they'd meet us down. If you're interested, you can meet us down there. We'll have hard hats ready for you, and we can kind of do a walkabout down there and take a peek at it. So there's been some changes, every day. If you don't go by there every day and wait a week or two, it really starts to stick out like, wow, this is really starting to come together pretty nicely. So I think with the structures that are up now, it has changed enough that it's worth the visit. So I just offer that up Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock if you're available. Or we can adjust that probably if a different time would work during the day. I think it's supposed to be pretty nice outside on Wednesday. So
Great. Okay. Any questions at all before we move on? All right. Then we'll go right to the regular agenda. And if you remember right, the November 7th meeting, we actually tabled consideration of ordinance 5184. So with that, I would ask for a motion to pull it off the table.
Your Honor, I would move that we remove ordinance 5184 from the table for consideration.
Second.
If you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
All right, and with that, then I would ask for consideration of ordinance number 5184, regulating the horse-drawn carriages on public streets, and we're going to be looking at this on second reading.
Your Honor, I'd move we look at the ordinance 5184 on second reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. Again, let's just, yeah, we're going to ask for discussion here, and I would turn to you, Shane. Do you want to offer?
Sure, Your Honor. Mayor and Council, I guess I think the horse and carriage ordinance has been kind of a good learning lesson for this young city administrator. It almost took on a life of its own in our community a little bit, and I think most of that's because of some, maybe misunderstanding or miscommunication on what we were really trying to do. There was a lot of concern being this time of year with the festival and with the Christmas season that the timing was poor, and it probably wasn't. When I thought about that, when that was brought to me by community members, I thought about that. I said, well, I suppose I can understand why you'd think the timing's poor on that. This was never designed to harm the festival that's coming up this Saturday, or parades, or funeral processions, or anything like that. The uniqueness about that is during those type of events, the street is closed. It's either closed or the police are escorting the procession, and that is a completely different situation. What this ordinance really was aiming at, and it's been laying around in draft form on the city administrator's desk for 3 years now, and I resurrected it. What it was really aimed at was for businesses that would be interested in using a horse and carriage as a business in our community and doing it year-round, where they'd actually be entering the city street and entering the flowing traffic and mingling with the pickups and cars and motorcycles and everything that is operating on our city streets. And that's a completely different situation, and something that, to be honest with you, we have to be able to regulate, in the fact that we need to know what the routing, and we need to have some certain criteria in place for an unusual vehicle of that nature to mingle with cars and pickups and motorcycles and the normal traffic that's out there. So that's really what the ordinance was aimed at. It was never aimed at the festival, a closed street atmosphere, or parades. For sure, those are closed again as well. So they're just different and unique, and we organize those regulations through agreements that we've done for years and years. So it really has no impact on those type of arrangements. And then funeral procession is a little more unique, but again, it's in a a closed atmosphere with some law enforcement leads in that procession. So it's really not. It wasn't aimed at that, but nevertheless. It did take on a life of its own, but through some good communication efforts, through I know Councilman Merrill was involved in communicating with, sitting down with one of the horse carriage business operators and myself and Dennis Housen from the chamber, and we kind of just looked through the ordinance and looked for any tweaks that we might be able to make that would make it more Norfolk style. And I think we found a few minor tweaks that were just more of explanations in my mind than anything. And for instance, the horseshoes, the rubber horseshoes seemed to be an issue, or what that meant. And this gentleman didn't use any horseshoes at all, so we changed it that it could be either or. If they were going to shoe it, they'd have to have the rubber style shoes, or no horseshoes at all. The manure catching device was unique as well, and obviously we don't want to have horse manure on our city streets. The catching device is one opportunity for a business to mitigate that circumstance, or we adjusted the ordinance or that they immediately pick up any manure that's on the street. We just think for health and welfare and before traffic would flow over the manure and spread it across the street. That's something that we wanted to be able to take care of. The insurance was another thing that was highlighted, but we did not make any change to the insurance requirement. Again, insurance is a requirement for any time you're operating a business in good standing. Most good business folks that I know anyway have insurance to cover their liabilities, and this being the case, we think that's important, especially in the instance when you're going to be mingling with flowing traffic. It is important, and then anytime you're going to be picking up our citizens and putting them in a non-traditional vehicle, we just felt that insurance would be an appropriate requirement for that as well. I think what happens oftentimes, for better or for worse, is that that sometimes the community or sometimes citizens think that we should just be able to do these things and not have to ask permission or not have government regulations interfering, quote unquote, with what they want to do. But because I think the experience would tell them in small towns, oftentimes that's kind of what happens, I think, or has happened in the past. I know I can speak personally about small town living where that you just kind of do those things for better or for worse. But when you look at it on the big picture scale and you look at the resources that the mayor and council have to protect, and you look at our ability to do the right thing for all the citizens across our town, we have to have those requirements. In Norfolk and in similar sized communities and communities larger than us, those requirements are alive and well. So it's not about being obstructive or being mean-spirited or anything else. We're really just trying to do our due diligence as city staff members and educate and inform the public and obviously the mayor and council on what we think is the best course of action to protect those assets and protect all the 24,000 citizens that you all represent. So it was a learning experience for me. It had a great ending. I think we made some minor tweaks here that seemed to make sense to once we got the business owner face to face. We try to be problem solvers as city staff. We're not perfect at that by any means, but we're trying to get better and better at that as we go by, as the days go by. And once we got face to face with the business owner, I think we had a really great communication and resolution, and we're able to understand exactly what we're asking for and why we're asking for it. And then the lights started to go on for all of us. So I think that was a good learning experience, at least it was for me. I wish I could reach out and educate all the citizens on that before it becomes this whole community thing. I mean, it was on the radio station and everything else. I wish we could do that differently, but I guess, the public process is as such, and, our city attorney suggested that the mayor and council pass it on first reading, so we get some of those discussions out there and kind of flesh that out, and that's exactly what happened, and that's the government at work, so I think it turned out just fine.
Shane, this is just for jurisdiction in Norfolk city limits?
Yes, sir.
Because the question that came to my mind is a lot of youth, church groups and stuff will do hayrack rides. That's usually in a rural setting, but I just wondered about that application. So.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Happy to
Yeah,
answer any questions.
Question, comments, or Jane, I appreciate all the efforts on this. Dennis, you as well. You were at the table, and my understanding is there was good discussion, and that's why we're where we're at, so appreciate it. And with that, unless there's further discussion, then I would understand that we're going to be amending somewhat what was passed on first reading, so I would be looking for a motion to amend
I'd make that motion, Your Honor.
ordinance number...
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to amend ordinance number 5184 as was approved on first reading. Beth, I guess I'll look to you for the short title.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, to enact Chapter 13, Article 12 of the Official City Code to regulate the operation of horse-drawn carriages, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay. Did I mess up and not take roll call?
No, we need it now.
Now? Okay.
Just for clarification, this is amended on first reading, right?
Correct.
No?
Or
You're going to vote to amend the ordinance if and the amendments that are in there, the ordinance is in your packets both ways, and so the amendments that you're voting on are the ones that basically that Shane just articulated. If you approve that amendment, then the ordinance does not need to return to first reading. You will then consider the ordinance on second reading or third if you so choose.
Thanks.
So in a sense, we are
What?
approving the amendment.
Yeah,
All right,
so you're approving the amendment, but then you won't go back to first reading.
Right, okay. All right, so ready to vote then.
all council members voting in the affirmative.
Okay, so now I need a motion on ordinance number 5184 for consideration of that as amended.
On
Right?
second reading.
On second reading. Okay, all right.
So moved, Your Honor.
All right.
Second.
Motion with a second to approve as amended on second reading, ordinance number 5184. If you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Your Honor, I move that we suspend the rules and pass the ordinance on second and third, or on third reading.
Third reading.
Second.
We have a motion with a second to pass ordinance number 5184 on third reading. Again, needing no further discussion, I don't believe. Let's vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5184 carries on third reading.
Okay. Again, thanks everyone for the efforts on that. Let's move now to consideration of ordinance number 5187 to update the comprehensive fee schedule. Again, this was tabled, so I need to ask for a motion to pull from the table for consideration.
So moved.
Second.
A motion to pull from the table ordinance 5187, if you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
All right, and now we're ready for consideration then of ordinance number 5187. This would be to, regarding the comprehensive fee schedule. There was no action taken on this other than to table, so we're looking at this at this first reading. Okay?
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5187 on first reading.
Second.
A motion with a second. Any discussion at all? Does there need to be some clarification on this as well?
The only clarification I'd offer is that it's a $25 fee. It was proposed at a $75 fee, but no action obviously was taken, so
Right.
that was another minor tweak that occurred during those discussions.
Okay. With that, short title.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 2-5 of the official city code to update the comprehensive fee schedule to include a fee for horse-drawn carriage business license and to update fees for itinerant merchants, peddlers, solicitors, street vendors, and temporary merchants, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
With that, if you would please vote.
All council members voting in affirmative, ordinance 5187 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I would move we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5187 on second and third.
Second.
A motion with a second to suspend the rules for second and third reading on ordinance number 5187. Motion in a second, if you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5187 carries on second and third.
All right. And next, I would ask for consideration of ordinance number 5188, authorizing issuance of $2,190,000 of combined utility revenue bonds for sanitary sewer system improvements and equipment.
Your Honor, I'll introduce ordinance 5188 on first reading.
Second that, Your Honor.
Okay, a motion with a second. Any discussion on this? Am I looking to you, Randy?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
This ordinance simply brings us up to the full $5 million of bonds we can issue in a year without having to comply with IRS arbitrage rebate requirements. there's $4,900,000 of bonds in the budget for the sewer fund this year. This will get $2,190,000 of those out of the way, and then any additional bonds that would need to be issued for that will be issued in the next year. By splitting that issue up, we will avoid having to compute arbitrage rebate every 5 years. This will keep us under that $5 million annual issuance lid for IRS arbitrage rebate requirements. There really isn't any arbitrage to be earned now, but nevertheless, you have to hire somebody to compute that and prove that to the IRS, and it's possible sometime during the life of this issue there might be some arbitrage to be earned, and that's why we're moving forward with this bond issue at this point in time, and it provides funds for the Southwest Interceptor Sewer and grit dewatering equipment out of the Water Pollution Control Plant. The draft ordinance you had in the agenda packets did not include the interest rates. Those weren't set yet. They're set now, and they range from 0.45% on the short end to 4.05% on the long end. They have a 5-year call and a 1.25% underwriter's discount. So those blanks that were in the ordinance are now filled in, along with all the other blanks that were in the draft ordinance that was in the agenda packets. There are also a few minor changes and corrections made to that ordinance. And bond counsel requested, after we put the draft in the agenda packets, that we had an Exhibit A. And what Exhibit A is simply written procedures to comply with federal tax law and disclosure requirements. We've not had to have those in writing before, but the IRS has been pushing that cities and other tax-exempt issuers put their policies for that in writing. And in fact, the new tax form that has to be filed for every tax-exempt issue now asks questions regarding that as to whether or not you have written procedures to ensure compliance with the IRS tax laws and the disclosure requirements. And this Exhibit A will be those written procedures. Bruce Leffler from Emeritus, the city's underwriter, is here tonight, and either he or I will answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Randy. Any questions at all for Bruce or Randy? Okay. You want to? I thought maybe Bruce, you were just going to.
No, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Bruce Leffler, Emeritus Investment Corp., Omaha, Nebraska. Just a point we wanted to make. We had a very good, what we consider to be a successful sale on the bonds. I would report to the council, mayor and council, that on a 20-year financing, the all-in cost, including the issuance expenses associated with the issuance of the bonds, is 3.43%. Very attractive. And there was very good participation locally for the sale of those bonds, to the extent that plus or minus 60% of the bonds were sold, certainly right into the local market. So that's always a positive point that we want to make sure that the council's aware of, is folks in North Forks continue to like to invest in North Forks. So good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Any other comments at all or questions? If not, then I would ask that you please vote. Oh, I'm sorry, short title, Beth.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of combined utilities revenue bonds, Series 2011B of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, in the principal amount of $2,190,000 for the purpose of paying the costs of maintaining, extending, enlarging, and improving the sanitary sewer plant and system owned by the city, pledging and hypothecating the revenues and earnings of the waterworks plant and water system, sanitary sewer plant and sewer system, and solid waste transfer facilities owned by the city for the payment of said bonds, providing for the issuance and sale of the bonds, authorizing the delivery of the bonds to the purchaser thereof, providing for the disposition of the proceeds of said bonds, and ordering the ordinance published in pamphlet form.
All right. And with that, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5188 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass this on second and third reading.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion with a second to suspend and pass on second and third reading. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5188 carries on second and third.
And next is consideration of ordinance number 5189, amending sections 13-111 through 13119 of the code.
Your Honor, I would introduce ordinance number 5189 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, a motion and with a second. How about some discussion? Are we looking to you, Clint, or anything that we need to be made aware of here?
This is an ordinance which is primarily a house cleaning variety. Beth actually did most of the work in regard to it. There's the changes involve kind of streamlining some things in regard to the how those are handled between the clerk's office and the police department. I think if there's any other questions, I think Beth can probably answer them better than I can.
Any questions, anyone for Beth? Otherwise, we'll ask her to give a short title, and maybe that will give better explanation.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, to amend sections 13-111 through 13-119 of the official city code to update requirements for itinerant merchants, peddlers, solicitors, street vendors, and temporary merchants by removing references to repealed state statutes and changing the location where permits are to be obtained. Provide when the ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5189 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5189 on second and third.
Second.
A motion with a second to suspend and pass on second and third of ordinance number 5189. If no need for further discussion, I would ask that you please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5189 carries on second and third.
Okay, and that takes care of the agenda. I would like to comment, it looks to me like we'll probably have a vacant seat in the corner back there, as this will be Mr. Jim Cook's last city council meeting as a member of the staff of the City of Norfolk. And certainly on behalf of myself, and I would say probably this entire community, Jim, there's not enough thanks that can go out to the job that you performed for us for 30-some years. So our best wishes to you. I'm sure we will see you, I know, in the future, but again, it's going to be a chair miss back there, Jim, and you know you're always invited to be holding that chair anytime. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.
Dave did, I think. He always does.
No, you
He's
didn't. I got
quick to
corrected
shoot.
on the web and handling it, Dave. Someone told on you.
How are you?
Good.